Okay, last time we're in Kuf Gimel Halacha Hey, and it talks about din of a kli that's ended ben Yoman, and we spoke about last time that these din are really in Kuf Chav Beis, and in Kuf Chav Beis it also tells you another din that's not here in Hilchos Taruvas, which is that there's a gzera ended ben Yoman at ben Yoman, that even though ended ben Yoman but the evid is mutter, but you're not allowed to use a kli that's ended ben Yoman without Kashering first. Okay, that's what it says over there. There it says yet one other din, which does not come from, not of a Farish Gemara. Gzer in Bnei out to Bnei is a Gemara, but there's another din which is not of a Farish Gemara, and that is if you have you cook something in a kli and you don't know if it was Ein Bnei or not, then there's a rule. It's Stam Keilim Ainum. Okay, that Gemara does not ever say that beferish, that there's such a rule of Stam Keilim Ainum. It says Ein Bnei is mutter. It says Gzer Ein Bnei out to Bnei, but this rule that Stam Keilim Ein Bnei is not a Gemara. Now, it means this rule is a huge kula. Okay, it means if and it's a lot of times when you make a mistake in the kitchen. Well, Ein B'Nyama is the biggest heter, but Stam Keilim is the side version of that, which is if I don't know, then I say Stam Keilim B'Nyama, and that's mutter. I can be mekel about things. I don't know what happened in my kitchen. I could be mekel. Okay, so I'm going to stick them one little piece here that's not relevant. So to Stam Keilim, when we say Stam Keilim B'Nyama, I stick a milchig spoon into a fleshig pot. So I say the milchig spoon was Mistam Ein B'Nyama, even though I have no idea. Stam Keilim B'Nyama and it's mutter. That spoon needs to be kasher anyhow because the spoon is now milchigs and fleshigs. It's not treif, but it's milchigs and fleshigs, so you have to kasher. That's just aside. Okay, so have to throw that. Okay, now the Gemara, as I said, never says this rule of Stam Keilim B'Nyama. To the point, now the Rishonim are medayik from lots of Gemaras, that the Gemara is making an assumption that Stam Keilim B'Nyama, to the point that there are Rishonim, I'm going to come back to this later, that there are Rishonim who hold, it's not true, there is no such rule as Stam Keilim B'Nyama. And the Miyash all those Gemaras that sound like that, to say not like that. Because the Gemara never says it beferish. So the Rishonim who disagree, but that's not, as you know, that's not the din, we say Stam Keilim B'Nyama. Okay? So what's the logic? Okay, so I'm telling you that there's maybe riots from Gemaras to it. Okay, very nice. But what's the reason? Why should we say Stam Keilim Ainum? Why should we say that? So the Rosh says, what I'm telling you is the Rosh says it straight out. The Shach says, Kashrus placing as if it's obvious that most people say like that. That is, it's from a six. Maybe the kli is Ein Bnei Yoman, and even if it was Ben Yoman, maybe the tam that it has, that the tam that's still in there is lefkam into the food that I'm making. Okay, maybe what was I made chicken soup an hour ago, and now the chicken soup is going into coffee, and coffee, maybe chicken soup into coffee is lefkam. So there's always a possibility that it's a svek. Okay, for us, it's a little fuzzy. It's a little fuzzy because when we say kli is Ein Bnei Yoman, the Gemara says the tam is lefkam. Okay, the tam is lefkam, no problem. The tam is lefkam. But to say that maybe the tam is Ben Yoman, but it's lefkam to this specific food seems funny to us because we don't believe in Blios. We never saw Blios. We never saw a Blia to say that it was lefkam. We never cooked food and said, "Oh my gosh, it tastes like the spaghetti I cooked yesterday. Oh my gosh, it ruined the taste of it." It never happened to us. So next time lefkam to us is it's a little funny that other chashash.
So it should be more. It should be more makel.
That what?
We don't see Blios altogether.
Oh, so
we have to follow the halacha, but it's going to make it worse.
So no, because we have to be concerned that there's a blia, right? We're concerned that there's a blia. Say, but maybe the blia is lefkam. Well, I mean, the blia is lefkam. Never in my life did that ever happen. That the blia is lefkam. I never heard of such a thing.
I never have the shvach either.
So you say, so if there's no time,
I'm not worse over it.
Okay, if that makes you happy, okay, fine. so this din Stam Keilim Ainum is only when the blia is only when it's only b'di'evet. Why can't you do l'chatchila? If there's a svek seika, why can't you do l'chatchila? So the Shach says, I'll tell you why you can't do it l'chatchila. He says, the reason why you can't do it l'chatchila is because of gzera Ein Bnei Yoman or Ben Yoman. He says, listen what you're saying. The Stam Keilim Ein Bnei Yoman. So let's believe you that it was Ein Bnei Yoman. Would you be allowed to use the kli now l'chatchila? No, you wouldn't be. Gzera Ein Bnei Yoman or Ben Yoman. You're not allowed to use something that's Ein Bnei Yoman without kashering it first. So you want to say, Stam Keilim Ainum, I want to do it l'chatchila. He says, no, that's the gzera Ein Bnei Yoman or Ben Yoman. Even if we knew it was Ein Bnei Yoman, you wouldn't be allowed to use it. So Kashering is only Stam Keilim Ainum. Of course you can't use it. Okay, that's what the Shach says. He says, it's obvious why this din is only it's only a din b'diavad. It's not such a din l'chatchila. Okay, we might have thought of other reasons. I'm going to mention another one maybe later. Might have thought of other reasons, but the shach is like it's so obvious. He says it's gzeir inam b'niyam to b'niyam. That's why you can't do it l'chatchila. So that reason that I just told you from the shach, this is Yossi's question, ends up being comes out to be a kula. Okay, the way he explained it ends up being a kula. Like you wouldn't have dreamt that should be a kula because of that. That's like this. We only kasher kelim when they're in the binyamin. Because if we kasher the kli when it's binyamin, the time that comes out of the kli is going to go right back into the kli a minute later. So I didn't gain anything by doing that. So you could either have a kli that has shishu kinegdai, that's one way to take care of it, because the bleed that comes out is bottled into the water, or your other choice is to have a kli that's in a binyamin. So the time that goes into the water is nice time of kam. The water is kosher. And since the water is kosher, it doesn't affect the kli that I made it into. Okay? So now usually when I kasher, in my house, in a factory, wherever I'm kashering someplace, I know if the kli is ben yomer or ain't ben yomer. So that's what I do. I wait till the kli is ain't ben yomer. I know today I cooked it at 10 o'clock. So tomorrow at 10 o'clock I can kasher that kli because I know it's ain't ben yomer. He says, but what happens? What happens if I come to a hotel room or I come to Airbnb? Okay, and I want to kasher their kitchen. Okay, I come to a hotel room. I want to kasher the microwave. Okay, and I have no idea if it's ain't ben yomer. How it's impossible to figure out whether it's ain't ben yomer. How do I know if the last guy who was here used it? Okay, an hour ago somebody else was here. How do I know if he used the microwave or if they cooked in the kitchen that I'm there? Okay, so the shach says the reason why we can't say stam keilim. Sorry, the question is, can I say stam keilim ben yomer and kasher and assume it's ain't ben yomer? So the shach says the reason why you can't say stam keilim ainum ben yomer is because you're not allowed to use kelim that are that are ben yomer. You're not allowed to use kelim that are ben yomer. So what's stam keilim? Not going to let you use l'chatchila. Okay, when we kasher, we always use kelim that are ainum ben yomer. Okay, that's the isser to use kelim that are ainum ben yomer means use it to cook food. There's no isser to kasher in kelim that are ainum ben yomer. So if I'm allowed to kasher kelim that are ainum ben yomer l'chatchila, so to speak, I'm allowed. You don't say gzeir inam ben yomer to ben yomer and not kasher kelim that are ainum ben yomer. So I'm allowed to kasher them l'chatchila when they're ainum ben yomer. So I can kasher them when I'm stam keilim ben yomer also. The same thing. Okay, there's no difference between those.
Well, maybe it's ben yomer.
But there's a rule, Stam Keilim Ainum ben yomer, where I'm allowed to assume the kli is not ben yomer.
Right.
So the shach says, so why can't you do the chatchila?
Maybe it's ben yomer.
No, not because maybe it's ben yomer. No, he says because gzeir ainum ben yomer to ben yomer. It's true that it's ainum ben yomer, but you're not allowed to use it ainum ben yomer kli l'chatchila. You're not allowed to use it because gzeir you might use it when it's ben yomer, not because it might be it's not true. No, it's true. That's why b'diavad you're allowed to eat the pizza that you made in the pot that was a fleishig pot. You're allowed to eat it because he's stam keilim ben yomer. You're allowed to rely on that. So we know that it's ainum ben yomer. We assume that it's ainum ben yomer. So if I'm allowed to assume ainum ben yomer, so why can't I use the kli l'chatchila? Because ainum ben yomer kli you're not allowed to use either l'chatchila. So, but that means is when I want to kasher. If I want to kasher, when you kasher, you do use things that you rely on that l'chatchila. The fact that it's ainum, you rely on that l'chatchila. Okay, there's another way to say it.
So yours being with Agis in the shop, or that's
Who says this?
I'm going to tell you in 1 second who says it. First, so far, until actually on my paper it only says that I say it. Okay, but it's going to say more. I'm going to say in a second. Okay, so I say that. The shach said the whole reason is because of ainum ben yomer to ben yomer. That's the reason why you're not allowed to do it.
It might not be the whole reason, it might be one reason.
Okay, yes, there's another reason here on the bottom here also because of making spek sekas l'chatchila that also doesn't apply in this case also. Okay, another you can read later in the footnotes. This is what I thought. This is what I thought is correct based on the shach. So I've asked different people what they thought about this question. Until yesterday, yesterday I actually got one person who actually answered me, who didn't just say, I think like that. It's someone with whatever. Rabbi Yoman Weiss from Montreal. And he said, this shayla. He says it's in a sefer called Zivchei Tzedek. I didn't even know what the sefer was. Okay, Zivchei Tzedek was the Rav, the Gadol in Baghdad in the late 1800s. He's the Rebbe of the Ben Ish Chai. Okay, and he says, I didn't even know he existed until yesterday. And he says this shaila. He says we talked about the shaila in yeshiva whether it should be mutter or aser, and we found the beferish raya from an Isser V'Heter. The Isser V'Heter says that it's mutter. The Isser V'Heter in the middle of what he says that you could be basically you could be Stam Keilim Ainum. He says in the case I'm staying over in a hotel. I'm sorry, I'm staying by a guy's house and I want to use his pot. So you wipe the pot off and you can kasher it. And even though you don't know, Stam Keilim Ainum, and you can kasher like that also. Okay. So he said, what?
Maybe he didn't hold of the shach's shot.
Maybe he didn't hold of the shach, then he should be machmir. He's mekel. He says you're allowed to do it.
Yeah, maybe it's okay.
So actually, Bnei had a whole Claire. He was trying to be like, why did the Zivchei Tzedek say we talked about in yeshiva we masupik? It should be pashut. So he wants to say other pshatim based on you could understand. Not like the shach, other ways to do it. He says, Alpha began, he says that's the din, it's correct, and that you could kasher, you could be samech on the Stam Keilim Ainum, that you could, so to speak, l'chatchila kasher based on Stam Keilim Ainum. Now again, it doesn't happen in your house, because in your house, what do you mean Stam Keilim Ainum? You know if you used the pot yesterday or not. When you want to kasher your kitchen for Pesach, you don't just say, let's kasher and let's pretend we don't know what happened. Of course you know what happened. You know when you last used your kitchen. But if you didn't know, then you samech. Okay, anyhow, that's one thing. That's for us. Anyhow, yes, we talked about this a long time ago, but I've been trying to find an answer to that for a while. Anyhow, so like that. Okay, now the next thing is like this. Stam Keilim Ainum is not going to help us if we're on Pesach. Okay, if I on Pesach I cook in a pot and I don't remember if it's Ainum or Ben from chametz, by mistake I took the chametz spoon out of the chametz or a pot, I wouldn't broken it because on Pesach we hold Ainum is usher, so it doesn't help Stam Keilim Ainum because Ainum doesn't help on Pesach. Okay, because even if we knew it was Ainum it wouldn't help you. Okay, but that din that Ainum doesn't work is true when something happens on Pesach. So on Chol Hamoed or on Pesach, I took a pot and it was by mistake it was a chametz pot. And it doesn't help me on Pesach. If it happens before Pesach, let's say today, you cook in a chametz pot, you cook food for Pesach. That food is mutter because before Pesach, Ein Binyamin is mutter. Okay, so before Pesach, the Ein Binyamin would be mutter. Now, so you would therefore say Stam Keilim Ainum should also be mutter, but that's not true. The Ramah says in Aruch, he says that rule of Stam Keilim Ainum does not apply for Pesach. Of course, it doesn't apply on Pesach. It doesn't even apply before Pesach. So today, if I cooked something and I'm not sure if the pot was Ben Yom or Ainum from chametz use, the food that I cook in that is usher to use on Pesach. Okay, Stam Keilim Ainum doesn't work on Pesach. Okay, what's the reason? Why should that be? What's the difference if it's chametz being Stam Keilim Ainum or any other issue being Ainum? Okay. So the Acharonim have three different pshatim into what that means. Three different pshatim about why what for this chumrah. The Mishabur brings the most chumrah of those three shitas. That's the Magen Avram, and who says that since there's no beferish Gemara about Stam Keilim Ainum, there's not beferish Gemara. Some Rishonim don't even agree with it. Chumrah for Pesach, we're choishish for that shitas Rishonim that says that there's no such rule as Stam Keilim Ainum. Okay, because it's not a fair. I told you it's not a fair. I'm telling you, and there are Rishonim who don't agree with it. So the Magen Avram learns that the reason why the Ramah is machmir is because being machmir for those shittas in Pesach. That's the only of the three reasons that the Mishabur brings. Okay, now I told you there's three. I'm going to tell you a second one in a second because in the get to it actually has a very practical application. But I'll tell you the third one now, just while we're here, and that is third one is from Taz. Who says it really comes from a Daki Moshe in Kuf Chaf Beis. Okay, this is Aruch, but it's bring from the Daki Moshe in Kuf Chaf Beis says that some people say we only say I don't know if you remember this, but in Kuf Chaf Beis it says Stam Keilim Ainum, and even if it's from a Jew's kli, we also say Stam Keilim Ainum. Okay, so it's like a little when you read it, if you don't know what's behind that, it seems like a little funny. Like okay, well why would I think differently? Jews are going, what's the difference? Well, why should I think it's differently? So the reason is because Dr. Moshe explains is because that all the Gemaras that are merumas to Stam Keilim Ainum happen to be talking about goyim, which is the normal thing. Usually when you have a kli that's treif, it's a goy's kli. So it just happens to be like that. But there are some who understand that it's only for goyim that we say Stam Keilim Ainum and not for yidden. Okay, it's not the din, but some people say it's not for yidden because for a yid, there's always a argument to say is ask the yid when did he use it. Okay, if he doesn't remember when he last used it for treif or fleishig or something like that, then it's a knas to that person that we say to him because you're not paying attention to whether you're kelim or milchigs or fleishigs or treif. Then therefore we knas you and we don't let you be saying Stam Keilim Ainum. From the guy, what do you want from the guy? Okay, from the guy, we don't have any expectations from him. But from the yid, it's a knas. So there are those who hold that there's no Stam Keilim Ainum for a yid's kli. Okay, we don't pass like that. Okay, But the Taz says that the Ramah in Aruch Chaim is being machmir for that shita to say that we for Yidden we don't say the rule of Stam Keilim Ainum. So for Pesach, what?
He says that?
That's what Taz says.
No, the Ramah says for Yidden.
No, the Ramah doesn't say that. No, in Daki Moshe he says that's some people hold like that, but in Aruch Chaim he doesn't say that. No, he does not say that. No, he does not. And it would be a kula because it would mean it's only also for the owner. Okay, if it happens in a factory or if it happens in my house and it's not for the owner, it wouldn't be gay. It would be a special kanas for the guy who should be responsible. He should know what he's talking about. I think the Taz throws in the reason why I'm machmir extra for Pesach is everybody is very nizar about chametz. So now maybe we don't think you should remember if you're part of fleishiks, but you should remember if it's chametzik. Of course you should remember. And so that's the third reason. Okay, put that on the side. Okay. But anyhow, so this Ramah, before I move on to the next thing, which is very negated to us, this Ramah is negated. If a person makes a mistake for Pesach, they're cooking for Pesach a week before Pesach, and they don't remember if the pot was Ein ben Yoman, you call, usually you used to say, Stam Keilim Ainum. No, that doesn't work over here. Now, there may be other coolers. You shouldn't automatically throw your food out. What I mean is like this. I pick up the spoon, I by mistake took a chametz spoon and I stirred the pot with it. I can't say Stam Keilim Ainum because I don't remember that I eat this with spaghetti or that I didn't use this spoon with spaghetti. But one thing you do know, okay, if there's 10 spoons in the drawer, you didn't use all 10 of them with spaghetti. You know that an hour ago we were all eating spaghetti, but there's 10 spoons. I only used 2 of them for the spaghetti, so I could say kol b'parash. And there's other reasons to be makel without Stam Keilim Ainum to be makel in a lot of the situations. Not every case, but in many situations. Only this many spoons we use for chametz, and the other ones we know are Ein ben Yoman from chametz. No one's eating how much spaghetti do we eat? So okay. So now I told you the Magen Avram's reason, who says it's a chumrah for Pesach. We never say Stam Keilim Ainum, but the Pri Chodesh says a different reason, a different pshat. He says the Ramah in Aruch Chaim is talking about a machvas, and it's a special chumrah for machvas. Okay, the Ramah didn't mean it for all kelim. When the Ramah says we don't say Stam Keilim Ainum, he didn't mean it for all kelim. He meant it just for a machvas, and it's because a machvas is tashmisha tadir. You use it all the time, and therefore you can't say Stam Keilim Ainum. You can't say Stam Keilim Ainum for a machvas because people use it all the time, and no, we can't say like that. Okay, and he doesn't say this, but even though the Stam Keilim was based on a svek seika. It doesn't have to be for sure. It doesn't have to be like that. But really, the Shach says in Kol Seika that the main suffix is Stam Keilim Ainum. If the possibility of the kli being Ein ben Yoman is not real, if that's not a serious possibility, the fact that it's a svek seika is not going to do you any good. Okay, it has to do with the rules of svek seika. The rule is Stam Keilim Ein ben Yoman. The rule it's mutter based on svek seika. The rule is it's because it's Stam Keilim Ein ben Yoman. If that possibility is not a strong possibility, then you can't be makel.
So how much should apply year round?
So then, theoretically, you could imagine that it could apply already. Maybe yes, maybe not. I'm not sure.
Well,
now, because the
special din of machnas.
Okay, according to Pri Chodesh, yes. According to Pri Chodesh, that would be correct. Yes, it would apply all the time.
So why is that in Aruch Chaim only? Why not in there?
It's a good question. And in Aruch Chaim, he doesn't say it's special for a machvas. He mentions that it's a machvas, but he doesn't make a point of that this being special. I'm telling you, we don't. The Mishmur doesn't pass like that. The Pri Chodesh says such. That's what he wants to chat like that. Now, but this idea that the Pri Chodesh says that if it's tasmishay tadir, it should be extra machmer. He didn't make it up. It comes from a Ran. Okay, and where did the Ran get it from? The Ran gets it from because I told you 10 times already that there's no Gemara b'Ferish that says Stam Keilim Ainum ben Yoman. Okay, there's a lot of Rayas, Gemaras that seem to assume like that. But there's one Gemara, the Ran says that Mashma Stam Keilim are ben Yoman. That's a kasha that he asked himself. Everyone's being makel of Stam Keilim ben Yoman because these diukim, one Gemara says not like that. The Gemara is that Gemara is the Gemara talking about a knife. So the Ran says the reason why the Gemara over there says we assume a kli is ben Yoman is because knives people use all the time, and since you use a knife all the time, it's not reasonable to say Stam Keilim ben Yoman. For regular kelim, we'd say Stam Keilim ben Yoman. For knives, that the reason why that Gemara is mashma that a kli is considered to be is we assume it's ben Yoman is because knives get used all the time, and therefore there's no such kula to say Stam Keilim ben Yoman for a knife which is tashmisha tadir. Okay, now the Pri Chodesh is extending this to this machvas case also, but I mean, this idea that tashmishay tadir is not Stam Keilim ben Yoman, a thing that you use all the time, that it really comes from Iran. The the truth is, to tell you the full truth, the Ran gives other terutzim. Beisayis doesn't go with that answer to explain that Gemara it's a Gemara Chulin. And there's also a Rush. The Rush says, even though the Keilim we use all the time, the Mistama, Avkam, Mishtamshim, B'Kleim, B'Kol Yoim, even so you say Stam Keilim Ainum. So I'm not saying that it's Pasha, that Tashmisha Tadir is also. I'm saying, but this comes from a Ran, which is it's not coming from no place, the Shita. So what I'm saying is that we're arguing on what Pshat in the Ramah is, but that the idea that a kli that's Tashmisha Tadir, we should not say Stam Keilim Ainum is not coming from no place. Okay? So that means is that if you agree with that, okay, not that it's Pshat in the Ramah, that Tashmisha Tadir, we should not say Stam Keilim Ainum. So if I walk into a treif restaurant and I want to get a baked apple. Okay, they serve me a baked apple from a treif restaurant. So it's just apple. There's no other ingredients. It's not bishalakim. Apples are not bishalakim. And they offer me this baked apple. So the apple was obviously baked in the oven. Okay, in a treif restaurant, the oven is tashmisha tadir. Right, they use it all the time. It's really hard to imagine Stam Keilim Ainum on the oven in a treif restaurant. So then I can't say Stam Keilim Ainum when that. This is Tashmisha Tadir, to think that they baked the apple in the oven and the oven was Ein Ben is really far-fetched. Okay, so it's hard to believe that could be true. Okay, so then seemingly you would not be allowed to be Samech in that case. But that's not just a comment. I mean, how many people are trying to eat baked apples in treif restaurants? I'm sorry, who care about whether they eat kosher? Okay, but what about there's another case? Okay, which
why does it seemingly?
What?
It's Pasha.
Pasha that?
Can't eat it.
Well, if I didn't tell you Pri Chodesh and the Ran and friends, you would say Stam Keilim Ainum. That's a rule. Stam Keilim Ainum. Okay, so I'm saying that you see from this Hagam that we're not learning the Pshat in the Ramah, that you can only say it when there's when the Stam Keilim is a meaningful.
Right, even if you learn it's a real sex sake. This for suffix.
No, it is a suffix. Is it a suffix?
It's ludicrous.
It's ludicrous. Okay, you said maybe my case was too extreme. Okay.
The guy next to you is eating a steak. Well, where do you think it came from?
Okay. Now, what would you say? But in something that's made in a factory, okay? Factories are tashmisha tadir, right? Factories are cooking all the time. Not in my house. How often does the oven go on, right? Only how many times do we use a pot? You know, so we could say Stam Keilim Ainum. In a factory, for sure they run 5 days a week. Some places run 24/7. They're running all the time. So on the one hand, we should say that it's tashmisha tadir, and if this factory, let's say we have a factory that makes milchiks and parav, and I want the parav thing, I want to know, is it this DE thing, am I allowed to eat it? Should I be choshesh that it's made on the milchik kelim? So it's tashmisha tadir. They use it. They're running stuff all the time. Okay, so on one hand, you might think that we should say tashmisha tadir, and then say we can't say Stam Keilim Ainum. Okay, but on the other hand, there's a lot of reasons to think not like that. Okay, and that is that even though they're tashmisha tadir, but they're not. Well, there's a few steps here. It's not tashmisha tadir with treif. Not like the treif restaurant. Whatever they bake in their oven is going to be treif. That's all they do is make treif. So once in a while, there's a nut who walks in who wants a baked apple, but everybody else is eating treif food that's real treif, as opposed to I can't do the cookies. Sometimes some of them are milchik, some of them are parav. They make lots of parv ones all the time. Okay, and they make lots of things that are kosher. Even a treif factory makes. They're tashmisha tadir, but they're not tashmisha tadir for treif. Okay, so we don't to say that Stam Keilim Ainum. It might be Benjamin. It's not unreasonable to say that they're Ein Benjamin. Plus, we know that in industrial productions, the Blios that come from Keilim are not going into one apple. They're going to 8 zillion cookies that they're going to make there also. Okay, so the Blios, in lots of cases, the chances are that the Blios are batal b'shishim also. Even if there's some cookies that are milchiks or treif, those are probably batal b'roiv, and the ones that are not, we have not barnat sometimes, and all kinds of other related sfeikas like that. What I'm saying is that even if you say that tashmisha tadir, we should not say Stam Keilim Ainum. I'm not at all convinced that that's true by factory.
And factory for milchiks and parav, but
treif.
A lot of these first don't apply.
Not barnat doesn't apply, but the fact that most of the things that they make are. Most of the things factories make are kosher, in most cases. It's not so much treif that's out there. Hanan is only a chumrah, but the blios that are in there are probably going to be balt b'shishim into the thing that I'm making anyhow. It's pretty hard to make something treif on kelim in an industrial setting again because they don't make one box of cookies or one batch of drink at a time.
I mean, what's the practical enough though? We're not going to tell a consumer that
That's dangerous.
I'm not telling a consumer you go ahead and use it because based on this. So
Chanan's a chumrah is probably.
right, but it's certainly not going to do that, right? So where's the practical application of this?
You're saying is that if something was made on DE, so that's the question that people ask. If something that's DE, and the hashgacha, yeah, it's DE. Are you allowed to eat that with meat? Are you allowed to eat that with meat? So if it happens in your house, something that's DE, no, you can't eat it with meat. Something that's DE, you can't eat it with meat. That's the din. It's made on milchad kelim. If it's made in a factory in DE, well, I don't see why you can't eat it with meat.
You can't tell the consumer.
Okay.
Once you open the door, then it's this thing. I can anytime, always, eat this thing with meat, whatever. You know what I'm saying?
Maybe with DE because it's only milk. Like I'm saying, but with tarfus, I'm not sure you could say that.
Okay, so in tarfus, the situations are less common because how would we know there's a kosher thing made in a tray factory?
We don't know. So therefore, we're going to be machar because we just don't know.
Yeah, okay, but I have tons of tape.